This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is April 9th, 2024. Last week, I posted about U.S. government policy on foreign aid follow-up. And what I wanted you guys to see is how much money is in some of the countries that I identified. What I really want to do with this part of the podcast is talk about four things. I want to talk about, why do you think the policy is no conditions on foreign aid, or that's my perception of it? When countries don't care for their citizens, are we supposed to step in and make it work? If we have a deficit of $33 trillion and war disagreements with these countries, should we still help them? What are the alternatives to funding countries' issues? So that's four items I want to look at. So let's start with the first one. Why do you think the policy is no conditions in foreign aid? This idea is my perception, and perception is very strong. So if you read these articles enough times and you do a little bit of research, I've reached a conclusion that in this big government that we have is very situational to why we're giving countries money. And when you try and look it up to see specifically, you get the pie in the sky answer of freedom and democracy. And as I've talked about before, I don't think in today's modern world that's attainable. I think it's more important to sell ideas of how to build infrastructure, how to set up your government, things of that nature. Besides, I've been proven right, because if we look at all of the foreign aid, specifically to the countries that we're given to, their citizens are not better off. And as I highlighted, they have money in their country, the 2%, but then the other 98% don't get any of it whatsoever. The second one is, when countries don't care for their citizens, are we supposed to step in and make it work? Now I want to focus on two areas, Egypt and Arabia. So Egypt and Arabia are separate even though they're in the same region. And the reason that I wanted to focus on them for this concept is the people are treated really bad, especially in Africa. So if you look at the black nations of Africa, they are some of the poorest in the world. And quite frankly, since I've been alive, they haven't gotten more. Now, in previous podcasts, I've talked about that the black Africans that leave the country and go to other countries, they send money back. That's one source. The second source is, as stated previously, that the churches, especially the Catholic Church, has given billions of support, not only in money, but in know-how and all that stuff. And you can check me out on this one. If you go to countries like the Sudan, if you go to Haiti, well, Haiti's not an African country, sorry, Ethiopia, some of those other countries in Africa, anything that was built is predominantly by the Christian organizations in the country. And when I checked, I saw that it dates back to the 1800s. So think about it. Over 100 years of infrastructure support, and when they leave, the people there do absolutely nothing, and the people making all of the money keep it. They build stuff for themselves, and maybe they fund the politicians some, but the actual people don't get anything from that whatsoever. The third one, if we have a deficit of $33 trillion in war, disagreements with these countries, should we still help them? Why did I bring that up? About a year and a half ago, the country was not Sudan, but one of those countries. They made it illegal for people to be gay in their country. And so the U.S. was giving them probably $90 million a year in foreign aid. And we didn't stop the aid, but we threatened them that if their legislature did not let that law go through, well, if that law went through, we would quit funding them. So if you go and check now, we didn't do anything. All we did was threaten. And the reason I bring this up is because that was the only time in my reading that I ever saw that we threatened the people. And in some of these countries, especially in Africa, with these 4 or 5 black countries, there's oppression every decade at least. There's famine from it being droughts and all of that stuff. And the reason I brought up droughts, just in case you didn't realize it, the people in Dubai know how to make it rain. Yet, in these poor black African nations, with us giving them all of that money, they don't seem to know how to make it rain. And I know that sounds ridiculous on the surface, but that's what the money should be used for from these governments. And also, my research tells me that in these black nations, they are some of the most oppressive on their own people that I've ever seen. And the people with the money don't seem to pay any more in taxes so that the governments can fund certain projects for the people. The Arabians aren't quite as bad, unless, of course, you're in Palestine, which they gave them lots of money, but the people let the terrorists take over, and then there were issues. The deficit for us, still on the third one, should be very important to us. We are the only country I know of, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that's in tremendous debt and still giving away money to other countries where they have millionaires and billionaires who could help out their own citizens. And that's the most mind-boggling piece of this that I wanted to submit to you. So the last one, the fourth one, what are the alternatives to funding countries' issues? I alluded to one of them. You show them how to set up infrastructure. If you look at a country like Dubai, when they started getting money in, they partner with the United Kingdom, England, and they sent in expertise. They paid them for it, and as a result of that, they got that jump in infrastructure knowledge so that they could build things. The United States could actually do that as well, because in the countries that I identified that we give the most money to is Ethiopia, Jordan, Egypt, Afghanistan, Somalia, Yemen. If you go and look at what those countries look like, they look like third world countries. And that's because people don't build there. If you're not building, if your citizens don't know how to build, you cannot progress and have good buildings, infrastructure, infrastructure for like toilets and sewage and all of those types of things. And my assumption was that that's when we were giving people money for the people, that's what we were doing. The other thing is we need to champion our education system to them too. The United States, one of the greatest things that happen is we promote education. And of course, people say, well, blah, 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 blah. But generally speaking, that's what we're doing. And that works. So if people are better educated, they can make better decisions, better people are elected, etc. The other part of that is I can see this, and this information is available. But for some reason in these countries that I'm talking about, the people, it doesn't seem to be their will, or they are afraid to go against the government or even the millionaires and the billionaires. And for us, it means that we, the United States of America taxpayers, are footing the bills with no expectations. And I have talked several times about not having expectations, and then there is no audit on what we're doing, giving these countries money abroad. And we really, really need to cut down on just giving away free money, because that's what it is. If you're giving money away to people with no expectations, we've seen at least 50 years that I can track that we're not getting anything out of it in these countries. Now, I didn't mention South Africa, but I will now. South Africa has 86,000 millionaires and 9 billionaires, right? But yet, they have done nothing to help their neighbors like Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya. And I keep talking about those because those are the poorest countries, and we're giving them the most money. Yemen, and I said this one time, and I think that we should promote this to them as a policy. The black African nations need to unite. If they would ever unite, they could share resources. So let's call them country states, if they could do that, then they could share resources, and then collectively, with more ideas and more people, do more things that are important. Because the best country that's done that is the United States of America. We share resources. We have a central government. When people are in need, they get it from the federal government. Now, and I know that that's not perfect, but the idea of it is very important. I think that we need to look at who we're giving money and why are we giving it to them when they have multiple sources, and it's not the will of the people, because they are electing people, and there's probably some dictators out there too. Sorry. They need to want this to happen. And if the people do not want things, and you can look at all of the information that I have put out there, if it's not the will of the people in the country, and they're not willing to fight and die for it, we can't keep throwing money at them. And they have internal resources. They've got millionaires and billionaires who should be paying more. And like I said on the post, our policy confuses me, since our expectation is that in this country, the wealthy are supposed to help the poor, yet this same formula policy doesn't work abroad. This is Just Listen. Let me know what you think.